Hello, and welcome to Woman with Bunny Ears, a Twin Peaks podcast, Season 1, Episode 6, where we will be discussing Mr. Boop. And for clarity, everything on MrBoop.net is fair game, so that includes all four books of the comic, the two videos that are just sort of on the website, and the adventure game. And as always, we will just proceed, assuming everyone has read that. But this especially is about the length of a significant short story. So if you're listening now and you haven't experienced Mr. Boop, I wholeheartedly recommend that you just go do that. You can just pause it and come back. I am your host, copyright Flashy Man, and this is your co-host, trademark Jason.
Hello.
All right, and before we get into anything else, I just want to say, that guy's wife is so hot.
It's pretty hot.
So hot. Yeah. Oh my god. Anyhow, Mr. Boop is my favorite thing that I've read in a while, and also one of the most popular things that I've shared around to some of our mutual friends, which made me think that there would be more people on this episode, but hey, scheduling, am I right?
Here we are. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
okay. We don't need guests.
It's almost as though our guests were like figments of our imagination or something. I'm not really friends with Bugs Bunny here. No,
We're tracing what grains.
Yeah. What kind of a name is that? God,
Doesn't make any sense.
yeah. So, how'd you like Mr. Boop?
Yeah. It's I share your assessment. It's very, very good. It's like it a lot.
Nice. Yeah. I like many different parts about it as well. For instance, there's just there's the continuous running gag of like, I can't believe how hot my wife is, and I can't believe how hot my husband is. And this also, I guess, in a way, sort of extends to the other running gag of like, you know, other forms of intimacy and openness, where they're like, oh, I'm glad my husband is so sensitive, or when Betty Boop says Bugs Bunny had a nice dick, and Alec says, "Yep," and then and then he says, "It's fine for both of us to say this." It's good times.
Yeah, it's great times. Although I do believe that it is a play on the fact that spoiler alert, he is not married to Betty Boop, and that the reason he
Oh my
can't believe it
God.
is because he's living a lie.
Oh, that's a whole new dimension. It's a whole new dimension. Like, he could believe it, but within his belief, he couldn't believe it because it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And I guess that sort of like fakely culminates when he admits he's not married to Betty Boop. And then he goes back into it. And then it really culminates with the culmination of book 4, the Calm Suser Todd music video, which I thought was fantastic. Possibly better than the original use of Calm Suser Todd. You know?
Yes, it's quite good. I like the original better, but is a commentary on it. It's spot on, and it's probably my favorite part of the whole comic actually, because it was just so not expected, but it does tie the themes together.
Right.
It's I think Evangelion's shtick is all not all of it, but the disconnect between fantasy and reality and your own constructed personas, and then living a sort of unbelievable life where Shinji's a unremarkable 14-year-old boy, and then very quickly a bunch of very sexy women start saying that he's this hero that has to save the world, and that he needs to be man enough to fuck one of them, and then he just fucks it up, and but it's like. It's like what would happen if somebody got all their fantasy dreams in media terms. And this is very similar, except much more. Actually, I would call this a less sexual piece of media. But besides that, they're basically the same show.
They were exactly the same. It was like I was watching Evangelion drawn frame by frame by this man online, one day at a time.
Yeah. Mm.
I also liked the little bits where like a character would just deadpan something that sort of breaks the illusion of this world. Like when Alec goes into uh, the office of the divorce lawyer, and he asks like, "Is this the divorce office?" And the lawyer says, "We don't usually call it that, but yes." It's just beautiful because it's like a character commenting on the absurdity of the situation, but then going along with it.
Yeah,
Also,
uh,
also
it,
similar is when Betty Boop's father, at sort of the culmination of the plot line, where Alex says, "You can't own Betty Boop," and he's like, "I got to be real with you. I don't really understand how copyright is supposed to work in this world, but I think I do." It's good stuff.
yeah. Uh,
What were
um,
you saying before?
oh, I forgot.
Oh,
I was looking at the parts you were talking about with the dad. Oh, they're like they're kind of like dream tells. Like it's like I don't know if you have a lucid dream, but I feel like
mm,
when you're trying to lucid dream, there will be like really strong, obvious in hindsight hints that it's a dream. Like somebody in the dream being like, "Hey, this is a dream. You should wake up," and be like, "Oh, that's just Sue just talking about telling me I'm in a dream again. Whatever. Or you just
true.
yeah." Um,
I don't know. Sometimes I'm in a dream and I realize I'm in a dream, but I just keep going along with it, and I don't use my dream powers to like make myself be married to Betty Boop, which is obviously what you would do if you could. So,
yeah, that's usually what I do. I feel like the whole dream powers thing is overrated, but maybe that's because I've never tried having sex with Betty Boop in a dream. I've only
right.
lived it vicariously through Mr. Boop.
Yes. Classic. Classic story.
Well, it really is. I think that's um, well, not. Well, I guess it's not a classic story in any way whatsoever. But I think my favorite thing is that it isn't. Despite being so absurdist and like meta and just yeah, just like several layers of insane that, like stack on top of each other. Ultimately, it still has like a deeply like a formal structure and a kind of like an
Right.
archetypal setup that it plays off of like I'm married to Betty Boop, and that's like a thing, and it's not like yeah, it's like I don't know, like the gag just keeps coming back, and it almost well, I don't know. I guess contrast with the ending, I guess that is subverted. But I would like to say that something in this art is superversive. It is kind of life affirming, and that is nice. And despite being so nutty and horrible, and I feel like you actually leave kind of feeling good and feeling like you should be a better person.
True. I've read and watched a lot of things that are sort of about a delusional artist falling into himself or what have you, and they are generally not as good as this. You know?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a pretty big problem with stuff is that it is not good. I feel like you gotta if you want
Things
to make
should
a
be good.
story. Well, especially if you want to make a story about marrying Betty Boop and how hot she
Right.
is, and all the threesomes you're gonna have with Goku and Peter Griffin and such. Uh,
Yes, yes. And girl
uh,
version Ranma.
yeah. Well, I assume guy version Rama would be in there because they switch when they sneeze. You know.
I mean, they're always going with girl version Ranma in this one. So I don't know. That's never deeply explored. I think
Oh
the
yeah, I see
implications of
her.
sneak.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that'd be a weird reference to explore. God, there's a lot of penises in this. As I'm scrolling through.
That's just life, you know?
Well, it's specifically Mickey Mouse's, which I did not want to see. I was just
Uh,
forgot about that.
you know, there's an interesting detail about Mickey Mouse there, which is that pretty soon, Steamboat Willie is going to be public domain, if it isn't already, due to the copyright notice snafu that has been well remarked upon. But its natural term of copyright would expire soon. However, this version of Mickey Mouse is wearing gloves, which means that Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse does not wear gloves. So this version of Mickey Mouse will not be in the public domain for quite a while, which I guess serves the joke of having him in there even more. I think that's where I would land on that one.
I think so. It does serve it.
Yeah.
I mean, was he actually sued? Did anybody actually care about this?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Oh.
I think he would also probably be safe under parody because you can get away with a lot of things under parody.
So part of his fantasy is that he had this marriage and then it was taken away from him and then he would suffer because of it. And then, like that this was all in it. Because I was just assuming that was real. Right. And like that I don't know.
No, that would actually be unrealistic because he did continue the comic. And so if he had actually been like cease and desisted, then
well, but it's
he wouldn't be able to.
He continues it, but it's like different. It's like, oh well, it's just gonna be like it's just gonna be a diary now, and then it's like he meets this girl and he's like, oh hi, your name's Liz, and then he starts like slowly transform her to Betty Boop, and I don't know, that's a good bit.
Right. It's a great bit. It's a great bit, and if he had done it a different way, it could have been legal. But it was basically impossible for him to do it that way because if he had like invented Betty Boop on his own without ever seeing a Betty Boop cartoon, then he wouldn't have violated copyright. But I mean, he obviously didn't. So that may have been. Well, no, he was. I was gonna say that may have been sort of part of the play of that third part, but. Or maybe the fourth part. I don't really remember, but no. I think it was purely about the psychological element of it, and of course the metafictional element of it, where the new Betty Boop in the comic starts complaining that he doesn't accurately transcribe her, and instead just has her saying how much she loves. Her hot boyfriend.
Yeah, she's so hot. That's
which is a great joke because it like you can see it playing out, and it doesn't. I mean, at a certain point it breaks, and you have to imagine that she's just left him in quote unquote real life, and he's just purely back into the Boop fantasy.
Right. But well, I think that the fantasy becomes all totalizing. So like in reality, he's writing this, and so then it's his fantasy, not just for he to be married to Betty Boop, but for her to protest, and then him to like erase that, and for him to like get off on the power dynamic of it, and then he wanted to show us that too. That's also part of the fantasy.
I don't actually think that's quite right. I mean, it's mostly right, but I think the joke is like, so, I mean, we have the actual guy in actual reality, and he's making all the jokes and stuff. But then in the fake reality, we have the author insert. And I believe the joke is like, he's not actually aware that he's doing this mental substitution. And he's just like, he's just like inserting the Betty Boop properties and opinions into his fake real girlfriend, and then like this is sort of addressed but in a way that makes it seem like he's still oblivious to the fact that it's happening. And I think that's where the, I don't know, character humor comes from about that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's the, Well, I guess it goes back to the, I can't believe I'm really married to Mrs. Boop. Betty Boop. Yeah.
There's also a very funny, like, psychological train that I think it was picked up because it was funny, and then it was dropped because he just, like, the real author just wanted to move on to other funny ideas. But, like, the first couple of strips are about, like, he's so happy that he's married to Betty Boop, and then for a couple of strips he's, like, pathologically afraid of the fact that he might mess up his marriage to Betty Boop, and he seems to be full of angst and suffering about that. But then it's extra funny because then he goes back to being like, I'm so happy to be married to my wife in the final panel of all of these, like, oh god, I'm gonna check into the insane asylum because I'm worried I might divorce you. And then at the end it's like, wow, my wife is so hot.
I mean, does that thread, like, fully end? I feel like there's, like, something shortly after that where he's like, he threatens to kill himself, and then he's like, I'm just kidding, I know that's toxic.
Yeah. In a thought bubble, he's like, if she ever leaves me, I'll threaten to kill myself. And then in the next thought bubble, he's like, I'm just kidding, I know that's manipulative. And of course, looking straight at the viewer, who is the only person who could read his thought bubble as well. But you know, the cartoon was fictionally him showing us about his life being married to Betty Boop, so it's sort of an interesting fourth wall break.
Yeah.
Because in the comic, he is writing the comic. Or in the comic's fictional reality. But, I mean, that thread gets dropped because then I think it goes right into, like, Bugs Bunny thinking he's going to kill Alec to get with Betty Boop. Which is a remarkably recurring theme during the short tenure of the comic strip.
Well, she's just that hot.
Right. She is. She's like Helen from mythology.
Does Betty ever do anything wrong besides not tell Mr. Boop that Bugs is trying to kill her?
That's one of the other things I found delightful about this comic is that
the women have no agency.
No, how dare you? No, it's that, like, everyone is really reasonable, and except for humorous plot contrivances where, like, Bugs Bunny tries to kill Alec to get with Betty Boop, but then he, like, doesn't, and then Alec is like, oh, we just talked it out like adults. You know? So...
Yeah, that was a good gag.
And then when, like, Sonic tries to kill Alec, and then he's like, oh, dang, what I did was wrong. Oh, no. I deserve to be in prison. You know. But that doesn't directly answer your question, which is...
Was it Sonic or Bugs where he's talking to the prisoner, and he's like, why are you in here? And it was like, I tried to kill this guy because he, like, I wanted to bang his wife, but he wouldn't let me. And he's like, yeah, I would have killed him too. Something like that. I'm butchering one.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, and that's Sonic in prison.
Okay, yeah.
Bugs Bunny never goes to prison because, of course, they just have a threesome.
Right. I'm surprised they caught him.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, the justice is swift. What can I say? But that didn't directly answer your question, which was, I was just amused by that. But also, of course, Betty Boop never does anything wrong because Betty Boop could never do anything wrong, you fool. She's the perfect woman. Ugh. And also, like, the tension in this story does not come from these two people who are deeply in love doubting each other. So that's also nice. That always warms the cockle of my heart.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of warm, although it is a fake, kind of disgusting love between cartoon characters, and
That's the best kind.
yeah. Well, so I think it like I don't know. I think there's an impulse here to like in a reality where things are kind of very hyper representational, and where we've sort of lost touch with myths and stories, and we just kind of have these like we do have a mythos, and the mythos is just kind of these random shared pop culture references that you can have a conversation with somebody about them or this and that, and maybe they were formative in our opinions of things or mannerisms in certain ways. Maybe there are styles of humor, but they're not. We're not getting much meaning out of them the way you would a myth, because we don't. We don't. I mean, they're fake. They're stories, right? They're not things that we participate in any way. Whereas an actual myth would be something where it's like there's a it's like there's the story, and then it's like there's pieces of it in like temples, liturgy, art. And then you show up in like a ritual lined up to the seasons, and then the seasons, like real parts of nature, now take on the properties of the story, and vice versa, kind of revealing each other,
Ooh,
putting each other.
another thing, part of, if I may, the over arching joke of Mr. Boop, which is like it's a pop cultural reference, but as he says, it's his 90-year-old wife. So it's to something that nobody really cares about anymore. And so even though Betty Boop was kind of like, I don't know, a sex icon back in the day, which you could, if you really wanted to mythologize about it, you could say like, ah, yes, she embodied Eros or something for that time. Uh, because she wasn't actually like a real lasting myth. It's just like returning to that pop iconography and taking it extremely seriously for what it was in the time, even though at our time in the present we wouldn't really regard it with any sort of weight.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of directions there you could go with it, because I think it. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the like some things the last psychiatrist would talk about, where he kind of makes this point about you look at women in the 60s or 70s or whatever, and they're all like hairy and moving weird, and then you have a guy, Wilt Chamberlain, he'll be just banging them by the cartload, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and that these kind of changing standards shows just how much of what we are attracted to, what we find a sex symbol, is just socially, it's a media construction. And but here he is sort of, I mean, yeah, that's definitely like the gag, is nobody would think to be married to Betty Boop. But in this case, it's almost like he's like revivifying it. Like it's like, Betty Boop was kind of dead and really meaningless. I mean, we could talk about her as a like we could because she's not relevant, like she's not living, she's not in the cultural consciousness in any way, and so we could say like,
Right,
oh, Betty Boop, but it would be like as like here's what other people thought about Betty Boop, or like here's what people like, but we couldn't access
right.
her directly. And now we can actually, we can access her very directly, precisely because this exists.
Through Mr. Boop, right.
Yes.
Yes, this has definitely revivified Betty Boop in my mind.
I mean, I want to marry her now.
I also want to marry her. Yes, and I'll kill you if you marry her first.
Okay, I'll do it after, but
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I think it also relies on Betty Boop being like in between culturally relevant and completely forgotten. Because people are like, oh, Betty Boop, I've heard of that. I know who she was supposed to be. and so that provides you the context, the hook, if you will. But then also you don't have any actual particular connection to Betty Boop, and that's the joke. Just thought I would mention that as part of
No,
this.
that ties right in. I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
like the identity is just kind of like like part of the fantasy element. I mean, it's not tied to reality, and so it's like it's like you have some kind of sexual fetish. It's like, let's say you're into like high heels, women that have that on. Um, you will like them in terms of like that you think that the person that you like see yourself as would attract a person who wears that. But
This
because of
is
that,
just
it's
the
like,
last psychiatrist post. I've
yes,
read this
yes.
post.
Okay, but it's the what's the word? There's not a word. Uh, I'm going somewhere.
Where have you gone?
Uh, I'm out of milk. I'm gonna get a water.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good radio.
Ah, just gonna leave all this in.
What's that?
Yeah, just gonna leave all that in. Just
Ooh,
we could put in like a some kind of musical intermission or something like a I don't know.
just a 1 second clip of a Betty Boop song, perhaps.
Oh yeah, she does songs. Well, they've got the videos in this. There's 3 videos. No, there's more than that. Okay,
There, there are a couple. Yeah.
I mean, like, there's the strip club interview, and then there's one within the show. And there's the finale, and there's How to Draw My Wife.
Right. What do you
Uh,
mean the one within the show?
I want to say there's like maybe that was just a strip club interview, but I feel like there's like a part of the show, or not part of the show. Like there's a part of the comic that's like there's a video that's separate from the finale where he's at the strip club. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah. Well, I mean, there's a part where he's in the strip club in the finale video, but there's also the initial strip club interview, and then his like apology video on the strip club, and then there's the people accepting his apology video, and then there's also How to Draw My Wife, and then there's also the finale video, and I think that's all of them. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's just interesting that there's a well, because the videos are almost like faker than the comic is, but they're representations of reality, and it's like you just never. I mean, I guess there is the one part at the end of the finale where they're just at the strip club and it's just kind of silent and there's not much lighting. Um,
Right.
Maybe that's reality, but again, they're doing a bitch. It's never not a bitch. Um,
I guess
down,
the strip club interview is faker in a way because we've all read webcomics. They can have whatever wacky things they want in there, but when
yeah,
you go and you have an interview and you're talking to somebody else, I mean that is a more factual genre. Except of course for that one part in the strip club interview where he breaks out into laughter. And then he's like, no, let's do another take of that. I don't want to break. But then they just keep that one in,
yeah, yeah,
which is pretty good.
yeah. That's great. Yeah, a little
I
unprofessional, but that's great.
I guess you could. I think that goes completely out of both layers of fiction as well, because like in the fictional reality and not the fictional fiction nor the real reality, uh, he wouldn't laugh at his own idea because he has deluded himself into thinking he's married to Betty Boop in some way, and he views that with a seriousness and a lust instead of just finding it funny, which he does in the real reality.
Well, in the comic, I mean, I feel like the central, like the image of it is kind of that knowing face they make the camera, and it's not like a funny face, but it is like a smirk. Like it's like they're just about to have a lot of like, just do a lot of disgusting sex things, and you're gonna watch, or I don't know, but there's a mischievous element to it that's like
Right.
almost comedic.
Yeah, but not fully comedic,
No.
I would say. Not like is to us in real reality. Were you going to say something else about the videos?
No, I don't remember. Oh, I was talking about the high heels and how the last
Oh yeah.
psychiatrist said something, and I was just going to say something, diverging from his little point. Well, basically just regurgitating the same one. But there's this kind of thing about the object has like almost like a just like a proposition attached to it that isn't embodied in any way, of just like Betty Boop is hot, and we
Right.
as the people are not. We don't have any way to find her hot, and I'm not sure if I even find her hot in this comic, but I feel like we could, now that she has been revivified, and if we just keep getting told that, then eventually we'll start to. The proposition will stop being so inert, and something could actualize. But there's just kind of this like, I don't know, this de-incarnate, disembodied nature to the whole thing, where everything is just layers and layers of thought train, and nothing's ever touching, and nothing's ever getting feedback, and this guy's just going off on his wild fantasies, and it's well, I guess that there's a direction there I'd like to go, is in what is this webcomic for? Why are we like? Why did he write this, and why did we click it? And what is it doing? Because it seems to be making some kind of point. Mostly, it's just really entertaining, and it's like nice to
Yeah.
have. But then it has some theme. Is he, but is he going to fix anybody with it? Is he just saying it? Why do we even have webcomics? I think all of these questions are raised in how it kind of just so freely appropriates the media landscape, the simultaneous lack of seriousness he takes it, and at the same time, sort of the deep understanding he seems to have of it.
Well, I think that's answerable in a very simple way, as I have seen in his like real life comments about it, his really real life comments about it. Uh, he just thought it would be funny to write a comic about being married to Betty Boop, and then I'm extrapolating here. He just kept going, He just kept pushing it
Interesting.
as things occurred to him.
Well, despite the fact that it keeps pushing it, it actually does have a very a nice formal structure in terms of fours. Like it has, it's set up in this very like confined sense of every panel. It's groups of 10, and then each webcomic is a group of 4, and then
Right.
he's just. And he says pretty regular with that, but then there's lots and lots of gags that play off that in both things zooming out, and I zoomed out too far. There's kind of this chronology thing. Then there's like the webcomic slowly, like the last panel slowly disappearing while we look at different things. There's a really good Sopranos one there,
Right.
which we'll reverse.
We don't need to reverse it. It's in the comic that these people just read.
But well,
Don't go any farther. We'd have to reverse it if you went any farther.
well, I feel like it's an interesting take. Is that just by mentioning it, we are invoking that there is something there, and that
That's true.
you know. And what's really actually okay, that's interesting, is that I would expect somebody that's about our age to be familiar with every single one of these characters except for Betty Boop. And of course,
Ah,
Mr. Boop.
well, I was not familiar with girl version Ranma, if that helps.
Oh, what about boy version Ranma?
No,
Oh,
I had to look that one up.
yeah, I knew that. I've seen all of Ranma several times. Not well, actually, no, it holds up pretty well. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, he,
Uh, but it
she,
is interesting how like there is uh part of Mr. Boop Endgame is establishes that Mr. Boop takes place in the same canon as Homestuck, and then also it goes and it has a Sopranos thing, and then also in the end it has Evangelion, uh, and then also it's about Betty Boop. So it's reaching across hundreds of years of diverse media.
yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it kind of reminds me of, I mean, I think that's the way any mythology works, is that they're not like, I'm especially thinking of the Greeks, because it's like we don't have, at least the way the stories are like, we like mostly we have probably the earliest like systemic account of a lot of the stories is like Hesiod, and like the Works and Days and Theogony, where I'll recount a lot of the myths, and then we have the Homeric hymns, which a lot of them are lost, but there will be individual accounts of all the different deities. But then even between those two, they're pretty contradictory. Those contradict the ones in Homer, which are about within a century, and then we'll have some scattered works from there. But the vast majority of our understanding of them in our kind of collective consciousness comes from Ovid.
Right.
And Ovid was an ironist who he just thought the myths were silly, and he was like he just needed something to write about, and he's like, yeah, these stupid Greeks with their dumb gods. I don't know why anybody believe this. And so he kind of he's kind of making fun of them while he talks about there's just kind of this ironic he's just he's got that smug atheist vibe to him. But then all of these get put together
That
and
was not my impression of Ovid, but okay. I'll buy it.
that's a hot take. I think I'm just more religiously inclined. Let's say I am a member of an apocalyptic cult, although I do not believe that God exists. But that makes him more real. But
Ooh, how apocalyptic.
yeah,
Something has been revealed.
yeah. Oh, ooh. But in this story,
Mhm.
Betty Boop is God, and he's
That's
married to
true.
her. Yeah, and then she eats him, and then he's in
Yes.
her womb.
Yes. That's how wombs work. Yes.
And well, I guess this is a coma vision, but then she's also controlling the story at one point where she's like, "Oops, I zoomed out too far."
Right.
So I assume that's she is, she has the power in his fantasy or something, or maybe he's ceding it to her and wanting to be
No. Betty Boop is just really God in real life.
really possible. I mean, there's about as much evidence for that as for Jesus.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and well, and I think this actually goes back to one of the things I love about Evangelion is that it's called I think Jesus and Betty Boop are kind of similar in that Jesus is a little more ubiquitous and people believe in him, but it's most of that ritual participation in the story thing is lost. It just kind of becomes representational or like a proxy for community, or we just kind of insert whatever values into him. And then he's just kind of he's really just a vehicle for our own narcissistic fantasies of he's like this daddy and son figure that'll protect us, and he's an excuse. He'll make you rich, and it depends on the culture you're in, but there's all these. He's basically just just a consumerist pathology. He doesn't really have much role in today's life besides that. Through a piece of media like Evangelion, which it's. Not that Shinji's really a good Jesus. An end of Evangelion he is, but he's it's literally called it's a new telling of the gospel through fucking terms we can understand, which is just fucking just big titties and robot fights and stuff, and that's fucking it's cool. I love that, and it makes me feel like Jesus is alive when I watch that show. It makes it adds this thing where I can relate to it, where it's here's a it's uh which goes back to what I was saying earlier about art and web comics, is that art, we don't know what art is for, I guess, the past 150 years. And we keep art just got really kind of dumb. And the only art that really has a function is low art, pop culture, pop music, and stuff like that, because it's made for a profit motive. It's made to entertain people. It's made for status. And these are things that we can connect to in our lives. But if we're talking about, well, I'm going to make this magnificent museum piece, it's just utterly unintelligible. Besides maybe like money laundering or this and that, and then we don't do anything. We hang it in a museum, which is a place of like a museum's fake. Like it's not a place for art. Anything in there is like already just inert. It doesn't serve any purpose in the community except we're going to go and we're going to look at it and we're going to study it. It's like, oh, this person was saying this and it's part of this movement and blah, blah, blah. And it just becomes like this narrative, but it has nothing to do with your life or anything unless you're putting it on as a fashion symbol. But when you marry Betty Boop,
oh, go ahead.
I don't know where I was going with that, but I feel like something about being married to Betty Boop and her being God and how hot she is. It seems counter to that, and it seems like there's some authenticity to webcomic culture, and that even tying into other universes and stuff like that, trying to put this pantheon together in postmodern tropes that we can relate to. It seems to be kind of performing that function as living art that we can then embody and participate in.
Maybe it would be relevant for me to mention at this point that I believe Mr. Boop was released on a daily schedule on Twitter by the artist as he was drawing them and putting them out there. And people were engaging with it there. I mean, I just read it when it was all done, but...
Yeah. So we did miss that cultural moment, but then even then, I mean, you're still.
We had to go see it in the museum of MrBoop.net.
Well, I mean, it's not fully dead, in that, I mean, you and I are talking about it. It's there's it feels like relevant art right now, whereas in about well, the internet moves so much quickly where things fade into irrelevance. Like it'll be like I remember getting into vaporwave back in like 2014. Everybody's like, oh yeah, this is dead. But then everything I was listening to came out in like 2013. They're like, yeah, this is like the classic thing that started this. But yeah, it's dead now. It's irrelevant. You're a weirdo for still listening to this.
It was itself a vapor wave.
It was fleeting. It was like speech.
Yeah.
She is so hot. I know. I'm just looking at like the when you click it, like when you click the MrBoop.net page, and it's this 90s
right,
just tacky website.
I was about to bring that up.
It just has the pumps on, and who did he make those images? Like those last two on the right, I mean, they're just.
I think all the like GIFs that are on MrBoop.net, he just like got from classic internet GIF sources.
Well, okay, there's two of them on the right here that I'm pretty sure it was like some 3D models of women, and then he just stuck Betty Boop's face on them.
That may be.
And they kind of look like the women with bunny ears.
Oh, ooh.
Which is us, canonically.
True. That's what we look like.
Yes, in real life.
I have often been described as hairy and moving weird, and that's what you said women were, so I think it checks out.
I like the way you move. You have a good, it's like very, there's like a weird commanding presence about it, to where it's like almost like actually Betty Boop, or this like kind of fantasy element where it's like you're just very like, you have a reality you're grounded in, and you're just not going to let anything like perturb that. And you're just like, and something will be trying to get you out of it, and you'll just be like, no, it's this, and then everything just kind of falls in line with that, and it's just fine. And it's like, okay, cool. Kind of like Steve Jobs, but like not insane.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's always been my goal.
That's how you move. Yeah.
It's because I walk so gosh darn much, You do.
You're walking right now, aren't you?
I am. I always walk during these things.
Are you still cold? You seem to have warmed. You
It's
sound like you were shivering earlier.
it's still pretty cold, but you know, when you get walking, it raises your body temperature. So I'm pretty
True.
good. I'm pretty good.
I didn't know bodies had temperatures.
That's one of the many wonders of science and physical reality, I guess.
And you know whose body has a really high temperature?
Mm, yeah. Betty Boop.
Hell yeah.
I guess I sort of in the digression of is Betty Boop actually hot? I sort of want to address the how to draw my wife video because uh it's sort of an interesting like lampshade of how Betty Boop is supposed to be hot according to our cultural cache of associations, I guess. But also, like during the video, he describes how to draw Betty Boop, and most of the things he describes, like her huge head, is it's like I don't know if that's really attractive or those weird little spiky hair things she has that I've never quite figured out what they are. He just goes bananas over those things when he's drawing Betty Boop, but you know, if you evaluate a picture of Betty Boop, you're like, these are just there. They aren't really evocative.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's something in the eyes, how big they are, and then yeah, the lipstick and the earrings and such, and little short. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more of that. She seems to be sexualing. That's not a word. Uh, she's a whore. That's what I'm
Mm.
trying to say. Is that she's sending strong sexual signals that she is ripe and available in the 1920s context.
I guess
And
she is like a flapper or something. So,
what an awful name for whatever she is.
yeah. What we covered the Great Gatsby not too long ago. You must remember the flappers.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a really good point. Is that wow? You're blowing my mind here. Both Jordan and Daisy were Betty Boop. Gatsby was in love with
Whoa!
Betty Boop.
Whoa! It all ties together, questionably.
And then and he was living well, in some sense all the characters were, but Gatsby's was the least grounded in reality in terms of you know, he had this whole fantasy thing that he constructed, but then it was so totalizing and so much more interesting than you know, Nick's little kind of chicken shit fantasy of like, oh, I'm like a intellectual, and Tom's of I don't like black people. You know, Gatsby was so much more interesting that his fantasy overrode them and then became reality
I
until he
wish we
died.
had I wish we had Trace back on because he really didn't like The Great Gatsby, but he really did like Mr. Boop.
Did
So
he?
I'm
It seemed
sure.
like he didn't get it, but he enjoyed it.
Well, I couldn't tell you that. I just know that he seemed to think it was pretty good because he asked me if the other stuff this artist had done would be worth looking at, and I said, well, you know, it probably won't have the same je ne sais quoi as but Mr. Boop.
I'm asking him. Hopefully, he responds quick enough.
Yeah. Okay.
He might be asleep.
Could be. Could be. Um.
Although he's probably gonna
mm,
like ping me at like 4 in the morning to play some mantle. So I'll ask him then.
all right. I don't know how long this episode is going to go on, but if we make it to 4 a.m., then
Well, I'm liking the meta aspect as I mean, yeah, okay. Let's be triple metal and just talk about it. Is that you know, one where this is a performance right now, and then it's tying into this mythos, and then we have the kind of extended mythos of these characters, and then us, and then we're talking about our real life selves, which are both within this are two flappers, but we're also like dudes and not flappers at all, and it's kind of it started off within the show and discussing it, and then we've kind of crossed out into this reality territory, which is somehow faker because it would be much more authentic for us to just like pretend the show is just like its own thing and then try to analyze it from there. And in being self-referential here, I'm kind of like, this is a very fake mode of being, is to talk about like things in these terms. It implies a kind of, it's like you're talking about it from like a distance from it, where it's like you're no longer in it, and then you're kind of saying like, oh, it's this, and this. But within it, those are kind of those propositions have more of an implicit relational meaning. They're not like spread out over a narrative. You're within a different narrative, which is your bullshit life. And yeah, it's weird. So I'm wondering how meta this can get, because and then we've also invoked several gods and Betty Boop. But then canonically here, the god is not Betty Boop. It's the Great Pumpkin King.
Mm-hmm.
Also Tyr, but that was mentioned off camera. But Tyr is secondary to Pumpkin King. So what is Betty Boop here?
I mean, if you look at Betty Boop's face, it's sort of shaped like a pumpkin.
Oh shit! She actually also kind of like Charlie Brown.
Yeah. Wow. There might be something about these cartoon characters having large faces.
But Charlie Brown is not sexy.
That's true. He is not. He is not. But if he grew up to be a flapper, maybe he could be? No, I strike that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of the men or women in Charlie Brown would make good flappers once they become of age to be flappers.
Right, of course. You can't be like a child flapper. That just wouldn't make any sense.
I assume they existed, though. There had to be like, I don't know, man. The 20s were a weird time.
I think Charlie Brown does have like some characters who are supposed to be related to some archetypes, like that weird child who keeps calling that other child sir. I don't know.
I mean, there is the running bit, I guess. Okay, there's a few things in Charlie Brown that tie to this. Some of the themes here. I mean, one is the parents always going like womp womp womp. There's that. It almost seems to be set in like the perspective of children and kind of their fantasies and how they would see the world and be in that narrative. It's not. It's not set in the adult's narrative.
Although, of course, the character who has the most fantasies in Charlie Brown or Peanuts is Snoopy, who is a dog, who is like a child to a child, and yet is also has the mind of an adult. As we've mentioned, he's reincarnated Charles Schultz, of course, but
yeah, he's also married to Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And then they had like Flash Gordon puppy babies, which I'm not sure which one of them birthed that. But see, if we had Trey Song, we could talk about that. Yeah.
Well, much like the millipede who thinks about how he moves his legs, you've paralyzed me in the cascading levels of meta, and I suspect I have nothing to talk about there, which is always the danger.
Well,
because once you recurse out of all the levels of meta, then you're just some guy, and you're like, well, I'm just some guy. And if you wanted an entertaining story out of me, I'd have to start telling you an entertaining story.
Well, do you have an entertaining story?
No. You want to end the episode?
Wait, did Trace respond?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, he said, Betty Boop or Mr. Boop? I phrased the question poorly, and he says, nothing witty comes to mind immediately. So he's in the same boat as you, it seems.
We're in the Boop boat.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else you want to say about Mr. Boop? I guess we can wrap up unless you have any further thoughts.
I did want to mention how in that How to Draw My Wife video, like 2/3 of the way into it, he goes off camera and then he just comes back like in his underwear, which like and I guess there's that additional gag of it's like, oh well, I don't see why Betty Boop is hot, but then she thinks he's hot, and it's
Right.
that
It's
doesn't
great.
make any sense. Uh,
That's what their marriage is based upon. Their mutual love, affection, and finding each other hot.
yes, and having lots of threesomes and well, and
That isn't what their marriage is founded upon, but it certainly happens a lot.
it is what saves their marriage. It seems like at some point, like the marriage is falling apart, and he can't maintain an erection unless another man is there. And
No, I think you're misreading it. Because he was able to solve that problem, but having threesomes did save their marriage in that people wanted to murder him if he didn't do that. And then they thought, well, this is an easy and enjoyable way to resolve this difficulty.
but I think this just ties into the cuckold fantasy though, because it's like it's he's choosing it, but like it's like it's being forced upon him. In some ways, it's like, oh, he's being rendered powerless by force, and it's showing how weak and impotent he is.
Well, I think I think you don't understand the level of trust and openness that they both wanted to engage in their relationship, as is established in the dialogue. And also because he and Bugs Bunny just talk it out like adults, and then Bugs Bunny just like moves away and works in a different job and is a bit sad. And then they're like, we ought to bring that guy in. Could be fun.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I guess you could read that as wholesome. I read it as horrifying, and I read all of their the constant, like explicitly affirming, hyper rational language of, "Oh, I love my husband so much unconditionally." I mean, like it is, and maybe like and I'm not sure how to parse this because it could just be that I'm, the world and my various. Relationships to which I can relate to this are just continuations of the pathologies of Mrs. Boop. That I've just lost touch with this, but like maybe that's what a healthy relationship looks like. But to me, it just seems like the our ideal of one, and kind of hyper communicative of, oh, everything's perfect, everything's all right, and it's like, and then that's. You're teetering on it because it sounds fake, but they just keep like affirming it so just unabashedly, just so directly. They're just saying it, and you're just like, wow, she really does love him, and she really loves her husband. But I don't. She's not real.
Well, before we get to the realness point, I think I have two answers to that implicit question lurking in there. And one is, I think it depends on a large part in your own personal feelings about things. Like, if you would view it as unthinkable and horrifying to have a threesome with your wife and Bugs Bunny, then you'll just find it unthinkable and horrifying, I think, to read it in the comic. But then also, I think there's an additional joke of like, how do I put this? So people don't talk like that in real life, usually. But there are also schools of thought about how we should talk to each other and treat each other that thinks that that is actually how we should do these things. And to people in that system, I think it often works for them. Sometimes it doesn't, I'm sure. But to people outside of that system, we're like, what are you guys? What the hell is going on here? And that's funny.
It is funny, and I agree with all of that, with the qualifier that it works for them is it works within the system. So they've sacrificed an authentically mediated interaction, which they would only have partial access to one that is totally within these terms. It just becomes like a big kind of platonic hyper rational hug box. And then once you're within that, and you've become socially attuned to that, then yeah, you can have a relationship within those contexts. and maybe you might be happier that way, but you're still fundamentally retreating to a fantasy life where you had to invent a fake language that's constantly like reaffirming the fantasy just by like sheer repetition, sort of the way that like we get told Betty Boop is hot so many times that we would start to think maybe she is hot. And it's so fake and so unreal that you had to fundamentally change your mode of discourse, which is really your soul, like the form of it, like what you are is speech at some deep level. You had to like totally make that artificial and then just keep saying a bunch of things and then kind of like have this proxy to it, to where it's like, oh well, it seems more real because it's like we're saying things so directly and so it must be true. It's like there's kind of the signaling game getting played where with the incentives aligned to kind of create a stable structure, but it's still it's still a house of cards, and it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the world outside of that. Just kind of within these weird cult systems for nerds who were not properly socialized and had to reinvent it from the ground up.
Well, I disagree with that in part because I think that can happen and that could be a way that you get there. But I think some people, as it were, their souls are already authentically like that, and then they can engage in that, and that's an authentic way that they want to communicate with other people who want to authentically communicate in that way. You know?
Maybe it would just depend on how well established that is. I mean, I think as that sort of stuff becomes more and more, it totalizes our culture, then there is no authenticity outside of that, right? I mean, if that's the way everybody's speaking, you have to speak like them. And
Well, that doesn't seem. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, that doesn't seem, all that different from the inverse problem, where like everybody is communicating in the certain way that we all communicate anyway, and like, that's not authentic for everybody.
Well, I think we're bad at it. Like it's an older system that's we have a lot of conventions that just don't apply anymore because everything's been so transformed just by technology and religion, and I mean there's just been a lot of shifts, but we only know our behaviors from imitation. It's rare for them to be like derived from the ground up and then done. So we are in a kind of transitional space, and it's hard for anything to like really attach itself and become so totalizing as technology and culture just keep shifting and shifting. And so there are some things that are like stable there, but then they're kind of like stable in the worst way because it's like they have to. It's like the things that will stay stable under like such assault, and so they have to be like just kind of pathologically fake and boring and mediated by hypocritical power dynamics that I feel like nothing can emerge further than that. But then if nothing exists outside of that, then I mean that's the authentic way to be, and it will work. And there's no way of saying work outside of that. So whatever.
Age-old problem, I think.
I think so, and maybe this guy had the right idea. Maybe we should all marry Betty Boop.
I
You
think we
first.
should, or at the very least, we should have a threesome with him and Betty Boop.
Yeah. I guess he's still doing those.
It's hard to place where in the Betty Boop threesome timeline we would be practically after we've read this comic, especially if we try to delve back into it. But yeah, all right. I did want to add that I think this comic is well drawn and it looks pretty good. I mean, it's not like Michelangelo painting every frame, but it is very effective in the style that it's using, which looks pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's just something I always like to note.
No, yeah, it does it very well, and especially when it shifts to the more realistic style, and then she slowly starts to look more and more like Mr. Boop. I think
Right.
that was quite impressive.
Yeah. Classic. It's also funny how Alec is like consistently drawn as half the height of Betty Boop.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Betty Boop is supposed to be especially tall. Although perhaps like just the logic of drawing her in a scene would mandate that. But like Alec in real life, I think is I've only ever seen videos of him sitting down, but he doesn't seem like a particularly short person. But he's drawn that way.
I got the impression that he was short, at least compared to the other guy. I don't know, hard to say. You need like a frame of reference. But I think it's funny that they. I don't know, when he marries. This is totally unrelated, but just
Go ahead.
he gets married to like the real girl he meets at the store. Yeah, it's Alec. Do you take to be your lawfully wedded wife? Duh. And do you, Belly, take Alec to be? Yes. And I'd like to legally change my full name to Betty Boop. Okay, great. You're married now, and your legal name is Betty Boop. You may now kiss Lahayim. And he's he's wearing like because I mean maybe I'm just. I don't know. There might be some like Jewish custom that I'm not familiar with, but it's like he's sort of like wearing. He's wearing the outfit like a Christian priest would wear, but then it just has like Stars of David on it, but he doesn't have a yarmulke, and then they just kiss. Like their tongues get really large, and they're kissing in the middle, and then she's grabbing her tits, and then there's like a zip, and she's going down. I don't know. That's a great use of the art style. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just want to appreciate that.
It's good. It's good. Well, all right, Mr. Boop. It's a great comic. We've probably talked about it for longer than it would take someone to read it. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Actually, okay, I do just want to add the panel right after that. It's like referencing back the initial panel, and he's my wife Betty Boop's really hot, blah blah. And at the end of it, he looks at the us, and he says, "I've got to tell the guys at work about this." And I think that statement there, I mean, like, yeah, it is a gag, but I think it ties a lot into the psychological theme of like, it's like he's he's using her as some kind of this idealistic fetish object to affirm this identity, and he's just there like his first concern is like I'm married to Betty Boop, like he's just it's this inert proposition, but then it's like I want the guys to see this, it's like that's how he conceives the relationship, is this thing that he's gonna show off to the world. Fundamentally, it's not like it's not important that he actually be married to Betty Boop. It's that he thinks that other people do.
Which I guess would relate back to the entire concept of having it be a comic.
Yeah. And I think that's the first panel too, right? I mean, that's yeah.
It's a direct callback. Which is quite nice. It was a good move for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's good art. It's like a fugue or something. It's like when you have your initial idea, and you can like just get the quintessence of it in one like specific like object level event, and then it can encapsulate all of the themes within it, and then you can reveal that as it goes on, and it just gets deeper and deeper. But it's all kind of the higher the total structure and the initial seed touch and actualize each other, and that's beautiful. That's the mark of a good art.
Or as I said in Evangelion, oh wow, things relating to each other. Whoa, cool. I believe that was a direct quote from me. Although I do want to quibble with the like fetish object idea, because I think it's a very regular and authentic human emotion to like when something really good happens to you, you're like, I gotta tell everybody about this. Which reminds me of a ye olde joke that I kind of don't want to get into because we're winding down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could save the jokes, and I don't have any poems to read.
Wait, no, I can modify the joke to be about Mr. Boop, and I think that would be pretty good. Okay, so this guy goes into the confession booth, right? And he says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I'm married to my wife, Betty Boop, and she's so hot, and I'm consumed with lust by her all the time. And I'm pretty sure, and here I go into a little theological ramification here because I need to reconcile the joke with the Mr. Boop form. And he's like, I'm pretty sure I'm so happy about it that it must be sinful. Right. And then the priest says, how long has it been since you've been to confession, my son? And Alex says, well, I've never been to confession. And the priest says, "Oh, are you part of this church?" And he says, "No, I'm not part of this church." And the priest says, "Well, are you Catholic?" And he says, "No, I'm not Catholic." And the priest like pauses, and he's like, "Then why are you telling me about this?" And Mr. Boop says, "I'm telling everybody." It was a little bit worse than the original joke, I'll admit, but yeah.
It works pretty well. That's that's a good place to end.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming by for this episode of Woman with Bunny Ears.
Yeah,
A great
thank you.
episode,
Yes, a great episode as always.
as always.
And
Classic.
God damn everybody else for not showing up.
Whoa! Rein it in, buddy. You
No, they're
can't.
great. They're great.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Yes, that was all. That was all a joke. That was all part of the subtle parody.
Yes.
God, do not actually damn them,
Yes,
please.
great Pumpkin King. Do not.
Yes.
Whatever his punishment, we couldn't even imagine what he's going to do.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.